Hi and welcome to the Data Strategy Gurus podcast. Today we have Rob Roemers with us, phenomenon in the data and analytics space, all out of Belgium. So for me, not so far distant. Rob is the head of data and analytics at the public company STIP MVBE. Hi, Rob. Welcome to the Data Strategy Gurus podcast.
Thank you, Ivan. Thank you for having me. I was listening to your previous recordings, and I'm honored to be in the same list as Bill Inman. So,
oh yeah. Well, finally, you became a big friend of mine. So for me, it was always a big beacon. The guy who told us how to build data warehouses has a specific idea about text analytics. So it was a very interesting conversation with Bill as well. So, Rob, can you tell us a bit more about the STIP MVB's journey to become a data and analytics company in a short way? We will go through the journey in more depth as well, but a bit high level so the listeners can understand a bit better how you became data and analytics driven.
Well, STIP MVB, as you know, it's the Brussels public transport operator. And I'm not going to say that we are a data analytics company. I think it's a continuing road that we're on. How did we start? Well, actually, it's a very old company. It started already with horse-driven carts or horse-driven trams. And from there, we developed into bus, tram, and metro like we're doing today. So I cannot claim that I invented data for the organization. We've been making timetables and planning how many drivers we needed and how many vehicles we needed for many, many years. And at the core, it's a very engineering-driven company. And we build metros. We have our own electricity network. So there's a lot of technology there. So in that sense, it's a fertile environment to try and sell data analytics. And I've been there for a really long time already. And as you know, I used to have my own consulting company specializing in data. So STIP was actually one of my last customers before I sold my business. It was literally across the street from where I lived in Brussels, the main office. So that's one of the reasons why I kind of hung around afterwards. And I started off as head of the SAP Business Intelligence Department. So we started working on that, realized fairly early on when I took that job that if we were just going to be doing SAP data warehousing, that we'd be irrelevant fairly quickly. I started around 2016 internally, I think 2010, when I was freelancing. And we really turned around the environment of we only have SAP data warehousing and we try to fit everything into that, into a more holistic idea of what a good data analytics department would look like. So we do data science. Now we have a small data science department. It's a very federated model at the STIP. So we are the central platform team that services the rest, but the idea is that it's really federated, that every business unit can have their own full set of analysts. So my focus is mostly platform. Like I said, we have the SAP environment, we have an Azure environment, we have a data science department, we do integration layer, API manager, that type of stuff that's really with us. And then we focus with a department that we call the Office of Data Analytics on change management, on data literacy to really change that culture.
Yeah, I think you tackled some of the initial challenges you faced in demonstrating the value of data and analytics. One part was already solved, that they were working with the timetables over time. But what I hear is as well a very engineering-driven company. That's harder to say, let's explore the data, test it, fail it, learn from it, and go forward. Engineers typically try to build the most solid product and move forward from that. So there, I feel some friction in how you need to transform in that typical way of putting up timetables, operational analytics, and then now more in an explorative way and trying to measure kind of everything what you can measure. I recall in one of our previous discussions where you said you were challenging with the people building really the trams and putting some sensors on the doors. And that's how far you went to enable the possibility to capture all possible data that could optimize the operations. So what were the biggest frictions and how did you overcome those?
Well, there's a lot of them, to be honest, because STIB is a very large company, and it's very diverse. Huh? It's 10,000 people. It's one of the largest employers in the Brussels capital region. And we indeed work with departments that maintain the trams, maintain the metros, that build the roads, but you're also talking to marketing, to finance, to HR. So the challenges are diverse. If you're looking at the more engineering-driven ones, the problem for me was not to convince them to use data, but to convince them to do it in a structured way. Because like you said, they're engineers, they like to test and play themselves. They usually come with a fully thought out solution and say, this is what we're going to do. And then you have to say, actually, that doesn't really fit the roadmap that we have, but good work. We're going to do it a little bit differently. So there's a lot of discussions about, should we put this data in the cloud or not? And they all have their opinion on that. So there was a lot of work on that early on to say, like, we need to have one platform, we make one common investment, and then everybody gets all the freedom they want within the platform, because they were very much afraid that they would lose access to what they considered their data. The people from the bus would say, well, I need all these sensor data from my vehicle, because in the end, the bus, a tram, a metro, it's a big computer on wheels nowadays. It has an onboard computer, you download all the data. They would analyze to see, how is my vehicle performing? What can we do? How would we change the procurement strategies with that themselves, instead of saying, let's make this data available for procurement, something that we do nowadays. And when we started buying electrical buses, if we want to dive into some nice examples, for example, when we started buying electrical buses, we didn't understand the technology. And we bought 30 buses, 10 of 3 different vendors, and we said, okay, we'll try and test, and then we'll buy a bunch. And the way we usually do that is we would drive them for 4 or 5 years, and then pick the best one and order 600 of those. But we started analyzing the data now from the beginning through the onboard computers, specifically related to the battery, because we were very worried. We, as a company, were very worried about the performance of the battery, because we had already calculated for every diesel bus that we replaced, we need about 1.3 electrical buses. But that was a little bit of a guesstimate based on the statistics and the specs that we got from the suppliers. So because we had a good relationship with the strategy department, they said, can you do data science on these vehicles and check if this is actually true? So can we check the performance? And you started seeing things like, and as you probably all realized, that snowing outside today for the people that are listening later. When it's cold, your battery performance is less than on a warm day. And if you drive uphill, and Brussels has a lot of hills, you use more battery than if you drive downhill, which may have an impact on how we want to plan our lines in the future. Heat, not only cold, but also warm, because when it's too hot, the air conditioning kicks in, which also burns a lot of battery. So there's a lot of stuff that we found next to just the basic stuff that we were looking for, like what's the basic lifetime of a battery, because it degrades a little bit over time, which was the main thing we were looking for. And actually what changed, is to come back to my story, what changed is we changed the procurement cycle for that. So instead of saying we keep those 30 buses, we drive them for 5-6 years, and then we buy 600, we're now buying 100 every year, analyzing, adding that data into the pool, keep analyzing it, and changing our procurement requirements. And we want this sort of warranty and this sort of guarantee because we see certain things. So it's really getting a lot smarter. So
the complete approach also changed the way the company is operating as well on the procurement side. So that's a big achievement, if I understand how you implemented that, by analyzing the data and learning more from that than what you were initially expecting to look for in this respect. So that must have been a hard time to explain to procurement that you're changing the ways of, hey, we just tested for 5 years and then we buy a bunch, 600 of that, but now we do it every year, 100, if I understood. And then
Actually, it was not that hard, because it was the business themselves that changed the procedure. It was not us as IT saying we did this magic analysis and you guys should work this way now. We do it, and that's one of the things that we try to do consistently, is we do the work with the business. So we assist where is needed. If they can do their own analytics, we check the homework. But it's them that are doing the smart thing. So everything that I'm telling you, I never said to anybody, you need to buy 100 buses every year. They figured that out on their own, which is actually part of what our roadmap and our strategy is based on. I always say we're not a data-driven company, we're an insight-driven company, because I don't care about, I do care, but I don't care about the data, because we don't need to collect a bunch of data. That's not the point. The point is to do something with it. And it's also one of the jokes that we keep making early on, was when we started doing data science and AI and advanced analytics, everything you want to call it. It's been a complete failure if you look at it from the IT department, because we have not put anything into production, or hardly anything into production. But we learned so much, because a lot of the stuff was just, let's do analytics, let's do exploration. We find something, there's a procedure that's broken, let's fix the procedure. And now we don't need, I don't need a learning model that keeps telling me that now it's working fine. We do another exploration analysis, and we really did early on. We're public companies, so we're using tax money. We're trying to be very, very conservative in how we spend that. I don't need to build a Google. I don't need to build a Facebook. We do a small test, maybe 3 weeks. We check that it works, and then if we want to continue, we do another 2-3 weeks, and based on that, lots of times what we learned is, as you do 2, 3, 4 cycles, you're actually done. You solved your problem, and you don't need to put anything in production, technically.
So you have another approach where you say this is success by not typically what I've heard about a lot of companies. They have their data science teams. They're in the explorative way. They can experiment for 2 years, and then management comes up and say, "Hey guys, it's time to see some results. You have to put something in production." And that's why we call 80% of the data science projects, they do fail because nothing is into production. But you look at it from a different perspective, where you say, we've learned the insights from the exploration, what we've did, and we did communicate that with business. So they get the insights from the exploration and the experimenting. And this is what we just needed at that time. We don't need it in a sustainable way, in a consistent way. We just needed to solve that particular problem. That it's more
specifically interesting when you're looking at data, because what the approach that you have 2 approaches to doing data. You have the approach where the Facebook and the Googles go, where you have a lot of generated data. You let your AI look at that, and it magically finds spots of gold everywhere, which is a very expensive way to work, and it works very well on machine generated data. The data at the STIP is mostly human generated. Now, there is some vehicle data and stuff like that, but a lot of it is interaction, so it's very difficult to do it that way. So what we do is we work with hypotheses. To give you an idea, what we usually do when we go work for a business or a new business unit, we say, like, give us some of the data and give us like 10 days to just analyze that first set, and don't tell us anything. And we tell them early on, and we're going to come back and you're going to make fun of us because we're going to find a whole bunch of stuff that you already know. But that's really good, because that means we're actually reading things that you already know. And that means that we can ask the data questions, and it gives a little bit of confidence to the business that we can actually do something with this data. So early on, they make a lot of fun of us. We did, when we started with data science, and we were naive like everybody else. We said, we're going to find a link between the wear and tear of brake pads and the number of times that the driver pushes on the brake. Seems obvious that you can get all that data. We looked and we couldn't find any link between that, strangely enough. We went to the business and said, that's really weird. Like, we should be able to see, the wear and tear. And they go like, no, because, it's scheduled. Every 3 months, I don't know how much time is in between. Every 3 months, we replace all the brake pads, because there's so much pressure on our network, and we need all the vehicles. So we don't have time to check that maybe it would, maybe it can run for another month or something. We need them to run all the time. So we accept that waste. So we found a lot of stuff like that, where we say, can we experiment with going maybe to 4 months? I think there was a lot of discussions like that, but that's actually how we got to most of our stuff, because then we started seeing weird little signals in the data where we said, like, that's strange. Like, all the time this happens. And then the business, we don't know either why that would happen. And then you start doing a hypothesis. We think that drivers are doing this and that's causing it. And then you try to look for data sets that help you support that, that hypothesis. So we found one early on that we talk about a lot, where we saw that if you have over revving on your engine, if you hit your gas too hard and the engine makes noise, we saw a lot of over revving, and with the over revving, those buses would break down, which is really nice in your scatter plot. You could see over revving, always a problem. So we started early on with analysis, it's probably the driver that is having a bad behavior, which is not something we usually obviously say. We have very nice drivers. So we started looking at the different things, and you start saying, actually, it's not that, because it's different drivers and it's at different times. And to make a long story short, we started adding a whole bunch of data in there. So we started adding the timetable stuff, what lines they were driving, how many people were in the vehicle, because you can see all those different things based on different sets. But eventually what we found is it's actually not a driver that has a bad driving style. It was vehicles. We have 4 zones in Brussels for STIP. And one zone, for some reason, has a lot of very popular routes, and they go uphill. So the over-revving was not the fact that you had bad behavior. You were driving uphill with a full double bus, which was really pushing the bus to its maximum. Now, one of the funny things at STIP, and it's just a funny type business process, is we assign the buses for life into one of those zones. So the buses that were breaking down were basically, out of that department, constantly being tortured uphill. And then obviously over their lifetime, they would break down more than the other than the other zones. So there they changed the business process a little bit, where they rotate. I think they rotate the engine out now after a couple of years. So you actually distribute the load a little bit over the different vehicles. But then to come back to the fact we don't put anything in production, we figured it out. We don't need to put that model or that analysis into a production system.
Yeah, fully understand. I was just thinking of, this is specifically for Brussels. Do you interact as well with other public sectors for public transport? Because I hear sometimes different stories where they run very old material, old buses. So they could benefit of your approach on looking at the data, the analytics, to optimize as well the complete infrastructure, what they're running.
Mm-hmm. Well, it depends how you ask the question. So if you're talking in Brussels, do we talk with the other public services? Yes, we do. Mainly because our focus up to now, or up to a couple of years ago, has been very internal, but we realized that we're going to need a lot more context. And Brussels, as you probably know, it's politically quite fragmented. So, for example, we are the public transport operator. You have Brussels Mobility, which is the transport authority, which plans how we do different things. There's different departments. The IT department for Brussels is under a different political group or a political leader. So yeah, we do coordinate a lot. One of the actions that we took is we are one of the largest IT purchasers within Brussels. So we have quite some influence. So we started a group called Data Moves Brussels, where we bring together different departments, like, for example, Brussels Environnement, who measures the air quality and the weather. For example, Brussels Parking, who arranges parking. We have some very nice cross-selling type projects that we could use, and we work a lot. We're doing something right now with the parking, for example, because lots of times people park in the wrong place and they block the tram lines. And we found an AI company that has a camera that you can put in your tram that can automatically scan with an ANPR camera, read the license plate, and automatically do a warning or a fine. So we're looking at, it's very early days on that, but we're looking like, can we do something like that? Because it would help both of us. If you're talking Brussels, there we really try to use our superpower responsibly and help the others. Because we bring purchasing, and we have a lot of volume. We try to bring the others with us. We have Paradigm, which is the central IT in Brussels that we work with a lot. And we try to do the same thing there to really say, okay, we will bring our volume and our knowledge for the others to enjoy that as well. You were talking more about the other public transport operators, and those are not in Brussels. Obviously, we're in touch with them as well. And there's a lot of initiatives there to work together with data. I don't know if you know the Belgian mobility company, BMC. Yeah. It owns the Mobib card, which is like the Oyster card, but for Belgium. We actually bought with the 4 public transport operator in Brussels, a small consulting company that focused in public transport data. So they're now helping us harmonize the different data flows that we have for timetables and real time into one central API. Because right now that was still a problem. You can travel in Brussels, you can travel in Flanders, you can travel in Wallonia, you can take the train all over Belgium, but they're not connected. So we're actively trying to fix or untangle a little bit the spaghetti that is there politically. But yeah, we talk with them, we see how they work, but it's very difficult to compare. In one sense, the business model is different. because we're an urban operator, so the population density is very close. It's a lot simpler for us to be on time, or to give the idea that a service that is really, really available. Because if one of the vehicles is late on a stop, it doesn't really matter as long as there's a vehicle every 5 minutes. Where if you're at the line in Flanders, for example, and we're just talking, I live in Belt in the middle of nowhere, in a very nice forest, but here I have a bus once an hour. So if that one is late, I'm worried. And if it's not there, it's a big problem because it's another hour. So the challenges are really different. And also funding wise, it's very different. And in Brussels, we are very lucky. We have a very respected, very loved brand within Brussels. Our political parties are very, very happy with the work we do and are willing to invest in mobility, which is different in the other parts of the country or nationally.
Yeah, that's a lot of exploration what you do with the data. How do you align that a bit more with the data governance and the standard BI reporting tasks in the traditional way? You said you have a central data platform. That's one of the achievements, and where everybody keeps their liberty to do whatever they want to do, have access to the data. One of the principles of data literacy, accessibility to the data. So how do you balance out the explorative part and more the standard way of the needed reporting?
We early on, what we did is we had two sets of reports. We had exactly that. We had what we call standardized reporting, which were completely under our control. We built them, we put them in production. The questions went to us. Obviously, they're done with the business who formulate the definitions, but we would be responsible for that. And we had what we called user community, which was the same data flows, but they could build whatever they wanted, and it was unsupported. We would help them, obviously. And then if they had something that they wanted and they really wanted to say, like, now we're going to spread it throughout the organization, we would make it into a standardized report. That was before, when we just had SAP. Now, with the data science and the data lake coming up in Azure, we're giving them a lot more freedom in Azure. So on the data lake side, we're saying we are the guardian of the raw data layer. Nobody can touch that. That has to stay immutable. But the layers on top, we can discuss. Either you can build your own stuff if they know how to do that, or we build some data marts or some small data lakes for you where you can experiment with everything you want. And later we can validate whether this makes sense or not. We use SAP mostly now for the standardized type reporting that go to our top management. So we really split. If you're looking at, I don't have any slides to show you, but we have a really nice slide where we say on the left side, we have really, we did, to get back to the story, because then I can explain it better. We created personas. So we have 4 personas for analytics and data use. The top one is really like the CEO, our CEO and our top management that really just wants structured reporting and, what's my P&L look like, the basic stuff. You have a sort of middle manager that works he works for the dispatch. We call him Hesham. He works for the dispatch. He has some people working for him. You have what we call Alice, which is somebody that works in the dispatch as a dispatcher. She really dives into the data. And then you have Karine, which is like a data scientist that needs complete freedom. And from those, we created a nice overview where we say, okay, you have on the left side those top management profiles. They just use SAP. On the other side of the spectrum on the right, you have that data scientist. And it's a persona for a data scientist. So it can be somebody that just really into statistics and Excel to the triple PhD in astrophysics. They get complete freedom in the data lake.
Yes.
To some limits, they can't spend all the money in one day. And then in the middle, you have self-service. And we split that into self-service visualization and self-service BI. What's the difference? Self-service visualization is for managers like me. I need to go to the management. I need to show some data. I want to have my pie chart in a column chart. Okay, I can change that stuff in Power BI or Analytics Cloud myself. Visualization is really for that dispatcher. She needs to dive into the data, find the problem. Why is the metro running late the last time? We don't really know what's going on. She really understands her model. So she has a little bit more freedom, or she has maybe prepared data, but she has more freedom to dive in and find a new problem. Where the data scientist all the way on the right, you just open up everything for them and they can really explore it.
So this approach of the data governance, where you control the data lake, the raw data, where you say we secure that this is in a certain format, that it's consumable for everybody. You defined the personas as well. Did that help on becoming more data focused? But you prefer to use the insight focused approach, which I tend to believe more in than purely data focused, because that's only the raw material. But the insight focus, that people understand, hey, we do have the data and we can do something with it, and this is the type of insights we can get from that. How has that changed, that culture over time, and how did you achieve that?
It's an ongoing discussion. I don't think we have achieved it yet, but it's also, I think, a sign of the times. Everybody is interested in data now. Before, I was talking to somebody else who was laughing, like, before they left you alone, it was kind of this little backwater, and sometimes you came out with some money and they said great and go back. Now they're all there going, why aren't you making more money for us? So the pressure is definitely a little bit more on. What we did a lot since I started as an internal is really focus on the change management. So we build a community within STIP of everybody that uses data. We call it the Data Lab community. And once a month they come together. There's about, I think, 250 people in that. They come once a month. We come together. 40, 50 people show up. We do some presentations. We do some hackathons. They ask each other questions and give solutions. We have a little Teams chat for them where they can ask their questions and talk to each other. But really creating that community, creating that awareness that you can do something with data, and especially the cross-pollination of ideas. So we did, for example, a project for the vending machines, the ticket vending machines. And then we realized, well, actually what they're doing there, you have a machine, it has sensors, there's a subcontractor that is managing that. We manage the SLAs of that subcontractor. It's actually the same if it's a lift or an escalator or another machine. So we went with that business unit early on before we had the Data Lab community. We would do the tour of all the different departments that we knew, saying, like, actually an escalator, it's kind of like a ticket vending machine. This is what they do. Would you be interested? And then we would do the same project there. Now they do that on their own. Also because, there's examples galore these days. So that's one of the things we did. The other thing is, I think governance is really something that we still have to work on, especially the official, like, data owner, data steward type stuff. We didn't start there, but it was a conscious choice, because right after I started, when I started, they presented me this really nice thing, and there's all this budget and it's going to be great. And then 6 months later, they said, actually, this data thing, we don't really believe in it. We're going to cut your budget by 50%. So we kind of went into survival mode, which actually was a hidden present. But we went into survival mode and said, let's show value quickly. And, I had a company before, so we really went into selling mode. And we started focusing on things like the ticket vending machines, because we figured revenue assurance is probably a good thing, and we can show how many euros we're saving, which is, we did invoice flows, a whole bunch of stuff that we can talk about later if you want. But we specifically said, let's not go to the business and say, first you need to organize yourself, and then maybe we can deliver some value. Let's do it the other way around. Let's deliver value, realizing that it's not so secure, or it's not so well governed. But we can flag that to the business, saying, like, look how valuable this is. Wouldn't it make sense that you make a small investment from your side? And we actually met each other in the middle, because before I got the time to say, wouldn't we already got people coming back saying, like, this, we do a very nice set of dashboards for operations and the bus, tram, and the metro, and they run out, they're managing the fleet. It's about, I think, 150 people that use that on a daily basis to manage the fleet. They came back to us and said, like, don't be scared. We want to do an internal audit, because, we don't understand how the formula works and who can change stuff. So we're not at all angry with you, but we really want to secure the things. We're like, okay, well, welcome. That's what we wanted to do. So I'm glad that the question comes from your side. That's one department. Then there's other departments that are saying, the data quality is really bad and IT should fix it all. There's other ones that are hiring external firms to come tell them the same thing that I tell them already. It's a very big department. It's a very big company. So what I say is correct for some pieces, but not for others. That's basically how we got there. But I think governance for me early on was really not my main focus.
Yeah, I understand. And also the different approaches, that's intriguing, where you allow them to exist, not trying to go for one standard way where you say, yes, IT needs to fix everything. For one department that works, for the other one, you're trying to bring them in because it's not only IT's problem, it's a company-wide responsibility what you have to drive for data quality.
Yeah, and it's one of the actually we do analytics on our own data as well. So when we looked at the budget data early on, we saw 50%, when I started, 50% was report creation. And we realized we were doing only data analytics for a really small sliver of the company. So we said, if we're going to do this for the entire company in this way, our budget is going to go exponentially, which is not, I mean, which would be okay for me, which is hire more people. But, you know, it's not something politically or organizational wise that we wanted to do. So we said, we really have to focus on the self-service. We really have to invest there, because if we want to keep growing, the growing makes sense on the platform team side. It doesn't necessarily make sense on the report building side. So for me, in the beginning, we joked about it. It's all people that are secretly working for us. Those 200 people in the community, actually, some way or another, we're working together. Let's not say they're working for me. We're working together. Data is a team sport, says Tom Bradman. So that's the way we really try to push that. And it's also nice because we're seeing a lot of times one of those, or some of those people from that community go to their boss and say, can you go talk to the data team? Because we're doing really nice stuff and I want to do something where I need this other department to help me. Could we make this into a more official part? So they're really advocating for us.
Yes. So did that help your background as an entrepreneur, or here some things coming back where you say, it's our money, so you're very responsible upon the budget and what you can achieve, showing value. Typically, what you would expect, a different attitude in a public company where people are not so mindful of the resources they're using in such a way.
I don't know if that's correct. If people are not so mindful of I think we all are very conscious that we're using public money. I join you in concluding that there are definitely efficiency gains to be had. I think I'm a bit of an atypical profile for a public company, in the sense that I had a consulting company before. We had about 70 people that worked for us. When I started at Steep, I had about 17, 18 people. So for me, it was really just it's one big fixed price project, and I have to spend all the money at the end of the year. And usually I try to keep some when I was still in the private sector. So in that sense, it really helped to make investments. So if you had a little contingency left and right, you can invest in continuous improvement. And that's really what we did early on. We said, we really have to run this. When they cut our budget, we said, let's run this as a small internal consulting firm, and we're going to sell our services. So I spent a lot of time early on really selling, just doing account management, going to talk and say, well, we could do this, we could do that. Would you be interested? And I can cut you a little deal because I'm doing something for this department. And if you invest 10 days, I will tack it on to this other project and we'll deliver this huge value for you. And, so it was really selling. I do that a lot less now. So I think there's definitely something there. And also what I think I did differently from others is I went outside a lot. So I went to the tech, the Wallonian company, the transport company. I went to the Lane, I went to NMBS, all the different ones in Belgium, the transport companies. And we said, what are you guys doing? Especially when we started doing data science early on, like, what did you guys already analyze? What worked and what didn't work? And pragmatically, I picked all the stuff for what they had already experimented with and said, there we found some gains. Okay, we can do the same thing. We probably will find the same results. And they always say fail fast. I always say fail fast, but don't fail first. Have a couple of wins and then start failing. And it's especially true in public sector, like you're saying, it's company money, it's community money. I don't think we should innovate with that. Innovation, I mean, it doesn't mean that you can't do innovative things, but I don't think we should innovate in the pure sense, because it's very difficult to explain to the public that we used this money and it didn't bring anything. We learned a couple of things, but so what we try to do is be a fast follower. So when we innovate, and that's why I try to correct myself there, we do innovate, but we innovate by taking proven technologies and putting them together in an innovative way instead of trying to invent a new technology. To give you an example of that, we have the overhead lines in the tram, those electrical lines that run on top of the tram. They're very difficult to monitor. We want to monitor them. There's a way to monitor them, which is you have to hire an external firm. They put an extra antenna, a pantograph, they call that, on top of the tram that has sensors on it. You cannot really measure directly because it's all high voltage. So if you touch it, you're dead, but your sensor also burns off. So it's very difficult to do. That sensor box that they have, it's also very sensitive. So you have to drive very slow to do that. So you can only do it at night with a special tram where you have it on top. Long story short, it costs about 250,000 euro every time we do it. Because it's so expensive, we only do it every like 4 or 5 years, which is not really great if you want to have an updated view of the status of your network. It's metal, hot, cold, that has an impact on the tension. So already early on when I started, that department came to us and said, can we use video and do something? And, we're not ready for that right now. A couple of years ago, we said, okay, now we are ready. If you want, we can do it. So the nice thing was they already had those tests from the previous years. So they had video and they had sensor readings. And we said, again, coming back to my story, we made a hypothesis. We said we can, with machine vision, deduct certain variables. Like there's some obvious ones, like the pantograph has to be, or the line has to be in the middle of the pantograph. There cannot be electrical sparks because then the distance is too high. So we had like 5 or 6 that we did. And we used the video to see, can we deduct it? Long story short, we can do it. Then based on the video, then we said, okay, now we can do the next step. So the next step is we build our own little sensor box, really dumb, like weatherproof box, Raspberry Pi, high definition camera, infrared light, GPS unit. We put it on top of a test tram, where no, it's not a test tram. It's where they learn how to drive. Those type of trams. We have 2 of those. Because you cannot put a Raspberry Pi on top of a tram with actual people on it due to insurance reasons. There are some regulations there that you have to pay attention to. And with those 2 trams, actually just driving around training new drivers, once a month, we already had an updated version of the network. Now we're expanding that into 10 trams. If we have 10 trams where we have that, we're still in the process right now of certifying the sensor box. We actually can do the entire network once a week. And it's really cool because it's a camera. It's pointing upward. We talked to the DPO for all the people that are worried about how we handle video in public spaces. Was the main part of the project, but it's all covered. We anonymize and all that, but we basically look and they capture data. When you see the anomaly, they take 5 minutes before, 5 minutes after it makes a video. It goes onto a portal in the cloud. It's all in the cloud, by the way. It's encrypted and everything, but the video's in the cloud. We do machine vision on it, and it creates a little portal where the technical guys can just click on it, see what the problem is. Before they had to drive there every time, wait for a tram to drive by, see what the problem was. Now they can do that automatically. They can schedule urgent, non-urgent, and we can save, because we anonymize everything, we can save the videos and we can train the model to also pick up other anomalies, which we're going to do later. We first want to implement the whole thing. But there we've taken a lot of very proven technology. It's a machine vision, it's a facial recognition algorithm that we use for the machine vision. It runs in the Azure cloud. It's just basic. We use the face blurring is just basic Microsoft algorithm, Raspberry Pi camera. But the way we put it together was very innovative.
Yeah, so fully understand that you say your innovation is in a certain way where you create new things, but not really some thought-provoking new initiative, what you're developing, like a Google or a Microsoft is developing with venture capital, because you're using the public capital. No, but that's still very innovative. I mean, trying to use whatever already exists is proven and then show value out of that. So, in fact, you already created your digital twin from the infrastructure, from the lines for the STIP MVBE. If I understand.
It's one step. We're actually working on digital twin, and it's one of the things where we're using the power of the region to really see, can we do it together? Because there's a lot of work where, for example, Brussels, if you don't know this, there's a thing called Urbis in Brussels, which has the entire outside of the buildings are available. And they did really cool things with it, like putting it into the Unreal Engine. So now if you build an apartment building in Brussels, you can run the whole cycle of the sun and stuff like that, see where the shadow falls, but they only have it for the outside. So we were saying, like, we would be interested in inside, for example, like the tunnels and maintenance for that. So there's an initiative going on together with Paradigm where we have LiDAR backpacks and they run through our infrastructure and we map it that way. because also for us, that gives extra value for just talking digital twin in 3D visualization, for example. Now that we're building the new metro to show the different people that are going to be impacted with shops, what works will be done in their area. We can give them VR helmets and say, like, okay, your shop will be here, and phase 1 will be like this, and phase 2 will be like that. You can visualize the non-existent new metro station and already go like, okay, do you want to buy a shop? Here you can stand inside of your shop. It doesn't exist yet. Other cases we have there is we work a lot of data is for people with disabilities. If you have problems with sight, for example, that we would create a sort of digital environment for you to train you how to go to the metro at home, because you would have the environment available. That's all future stuff. We don't do that today, but we're preparing for that. And we have very small sets where we have it now for 3 stations, for example. We have that digital twin. We're mostly interested, when you're talking digital twins, we're very interested in people flow, to understand how people, and that's why we're trying to do it with the region, because for us, we see people once they pass the metro gate. But at that point, it's too late. If there's a lot of people coming through the metro gate, I cannot plan an extra metro. Where if I can see a little bit further down or back in the pipe, I could see that, okay, the opera is finished and there's a lot of people coming out of the opera, and I see that they're not going to the parking. So that still gives me time to change my planning. So that's why we're working together with people. Again, there's one of the reasons we tested that was because we are aware of the privacy issues involved there. So we always say we're interested in the flow of the river. We're not interested in the individual drops. It's the flow of the river that's important for us when we're talking about that. The other thing is like electricity. We have our own electricity network, as you may know. At Metro Tram, we run our own network next to the official public one, but we are linked to it. Early on, when we started thinking about electrical buses, we said, okay, if we're going to charge all the buses at night, the rest of Brussels will have to unplug their refrigerator because there won't be enough electricity. Same with charging your buses during your trip. Right now, we've been very pragmatic with how we do our buses. Or the electrical bus lines actually run on top of metro lines right now, because we have the electrical substations underneath, so we can have the charging. But we're going to have to talk to the region eventually about where are we going to charge. And it's the same problem the line has. You have to electrify, but it also means your depot has to change. You have to be able to charge. You have to have a charging infrastructure. So we're really building all that monitoring, but also has an impact, and we're really going farther. It has an impact on your engineering and the way your depot, your maintenance facilities are built. Because right now you work under the bus with internal combustion, but electricity is on top of the bus. So all those places that we have with the holes where you drive your vehicle over and you start working doesn't work anymore. You need to be able to get your people on top. So there's a lot of work there. You need to then stop. You need to train your people. You need to have electrical, maybe not engineers, but at least technicians. At that point, you start competing with Audi in Brussels that also started building electrical vehicles, and you need the same people. So there is a lot of. It's not a bad thing, but it's a discussion that is based on a regional discussion. And it's one of the things that makes it very interesting. It's a very varied environment that you get into and that you talk to.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, it's so inspiring to understand that you're really trying to collaborate with a lot of external parties as well, and see how can we manage that best as well on skill set, on people available, resources available, and building your own infrastructure. Rob, you're so thoughtful and knowledgeable. What keeps you driving in this world of data and analytics?
I'm just really interested in the whole thing. I like stuff that works together. That the whole network thing that really, as a child, I was always really intrigued by the fact that, and now you don't notice it anymore, but I'm a little bit older, and the phone still had a wire. When you called America or anywhere else in the world, it's actually a copper wire that connects you physically from one place to the other. I found that really, really intriguing. Now with wireless phones, you don't really have that visual anymore. And it's the same with like the post office. I found that really weird also. Like I put something in a box somewhere and it shows up in another box somewhere else, and there's people that arrange all of that. So for me, data is a little bit the same. Something generates data and I can look at it, I can change something else, and I can see something change. So for me, that's really what keeps me going in the whole thing. I'm not really the technical guru that understands the deep bits and bytes of all the solutions, but just the whole and how I can make something better. That's really what drives me.
Yeah, I think it's a valuable skill set. It's the system thinking, the design thinking, and the holistic thinking, which is lacking very often with technical people because they're so into it, and that's harder to understand how everything works together. So how do you envision the future of data management, and a bit more specific, the role in public transportation?
I think it will keep getting more and more important. You see that movement. I think on a European level, if we're not talking globally, but just Europe, there's a lot of awareness from the EU that transport, maybe not just public, but also private, at the intersection between multi-mobility, should really be a European thing. So there's a lot of work with like the NetX formats, the CD formats that Europe is really pushing to say you should be able to leave your house in Brussels and go to Barcelona and do that in one contract. Not like you're doing now. Like at first I have to walk a little bit. Okay, you wouldn't plan that, but then I have to buy a metro ticket, then maybe a train ticket to the airport, then I need the plane, and I get in Barcelona, I need to rent a car. It's all different transactions and they're independent. So there's a lot of movement from Europe to say, can we do that in one contract? But that brings out a lot of very interesting questions, like say that you're disabled and you're in a wheelchair. If the Uber drops you off at the train station, is it the driver's responsibility to get you to the next phase, or is it the receiving one, or the one where you arrive that is supposed to do that? How does that work? What if one of the chains is late? Who is responsible for paying all the other stuff? So it creates a whole bunch of extra questions. But I see a lot of potential in what Europe is doing with the data spaces. We're involved with the mobility data space. As Stip also, we have the AI testing and experimentation facility. We brought that to Belgium together with EMAC. There's one facility that is really for AI to test on mobility data. There can be one in Europe for there's different high value data sets. Mobility is one of them. So we work together with EMAC, with Paradigm in Brussels. There's a bunch of partners that are there, but those are the main ones, to make sure that we have that facility in Europe, in Belgium, and that we can test with this. We're one of the drivers there. I really try to use, like I said, our superpower for the benefit of everybody.
Yeah, now that you touch upon AI, how do you see the large language models shaping the future of data management and analytics? And do you see something more value for large language models coming up?
Oh, that's the question of the day. I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan for my normal work already, for ChatGPT and those things. Do I see value for data management? I think there might be a really nice job for solving the data cataloging problem, to really be able to talk to your data and understand. The main problem will be that you need to feed it something, and from the crap stuff that we have to input them, I don't think we're going to make them very smart. But I think for just understanding this, why is this formula this way? And then you're sending me to a wiki and you have to understand all the stuff that is written there, to have that in a chat format, I think could be really interesting. One of the things that we were looking at to test a little bit, mostly through the OpenAI API, because we obviously don't put sensitive data into the ChatGPT front end for the people that are worried about that. We were thinking about the government gives us a whole bunch of measures that we have to do, and they're very detailed and they're very broad, and they're not always as easy to present. Especially if you want it in a sort of standardized way where you just click a couple of buttons and, like your top management and me as well, it's not so easy. So we were dreaming a little bit, and we were exploring that way. Like, can we take those measures, which are standardized but very broad, and then are very deep once you want to go into the analytics? Can we do something like that, saying, like, for example, what's the cleanliness of this station over this period if you took this line into consideration, and then give you that value? So right now, it's always a question that comes back to us or to the specific departments that have to analyze that. They prepare the data and they send it back, and it's a back and forth, and it takes a long time. So we're thinking there's some value there for us. We already explored the obvious ones, the chatbot for customer support. We're a bit hesitant there. Not necessarily for the reasons you would think, like hallucinations. We think there's a lot of value in using it on our customer support database, because Brussels is very multinational. Our support database reflects that. There's a lot of tickets in different languages. You have to understand all the languages. So if you could have like an agent that you could ask the question and it could just grab the Romanian answer that we gave once about where I can buy a ticket at a certain station, it comes back to you. You still have the human agent to do the check. That could be interesting. We're not so right now. Actually, it's not something that we're really analyzing to put that available for the public. Not because we're afraid that it will give some weird answer. We are conscious of that. But the main thing is, like, if it takes off, it's going to cost a lot of money as well. And it's something that we cannot really budget. It's consumption based behind that. So if, say, we are the first that does it and it goes into the news and everybody starts to play with it just for fun, it's going to cost us a lot of money. So it's not the first thing that we want to do, just to show you we're conscious with how we're spending the money. It's something that we always keep into consideration. And right now it's very difficult to box that budget.
Yeah, that's one of the problems that these large language model companies face for the time being, because it's consumption based. They're bringing a lot of value as well, but the profit margin is very low. Although that an API call doesn't cost that much. That's what I understood from the challenges what they have on the business models for the time being. Mm-hmm. Rob, we're coming up to an end. I have some rapid fire questions for you, just to challenge you and see what you would prefer. Public transport data or ride sharing data?
Public transport data, mostly because ride sharing data we have seen it before, and it's not super interesting because their models run their own things. What is very interesting about ride-sharing data, and then I'll let you get back to your rapid fire, is about 30% of them end up at a public transport stop.
Yeah, interesting to know that there is a transfer of type of data. And then big data or quality data?
Oh God, quality data. Because I'm a really big fan of little data.
But you said it's capturing the right data and then building the insights out of that. So real-time data or the historical data analysis?
Oh, that is a difficult one. I would say from with my STIP hat, historical data analysis, because we're still having some issues with real-time, but I'm not against real-time. I think there's great things to be done there as well.
Data integration or data segmentation?
Integration. Not just because I run the integration department at STIP as well, but I think separation we did in the past, and I think it's a cyclical thing. It will split back up at some point, but I think right now integration is more important, especially because you're seeing, like we were talking before with the European contracts, we need more standards, we need more integration to really play nice together.
And then customer-centric data or operational-centric data?
Well, the right answer would be to say customer-centric, I think. But for STIP, I would focus on operational-centric, because I think those are very closely linked for us. If the operations run very well, the customer will be happy. If we focus only on the customer because we're public service, for me, it's a bit of a paradox. You can't over-customize. The point is to have a centralized service.
And I've got some more personal questions. Are you a morning person or a night owl?
Definitely a morning person. I get up really early and I do my reading and my meditation early on. But it's also because I have small kids that keep me up. So I'm really tired at the end of the day. I used to be a night person, but that shifted.
It's a practical observation. Do you love cooking at home or dining out?
Well, we were talking about it before. I used to live in the center of Brussels and we dined out a lot. Then we had kids and we moved to the beautiful countryside. So now it's more cooking at home.
And are you more fond of the mystery of space or the secrets of the deep sea?
The mysteries of space for me.
And if you could choose, do you prefer mind reading ability or time manipulation power?
Oh, God, that's a really good one. I don't think I want to do mind reading. I'm very conscious of what other people think of me and others, so I don't think I want to know. I'd like to live in my own reality, so I'll take the time warping. But lesser of two evils, more.
So nice. As we wrap up, data, analytics, it connects us all, but there is some major power as well called music, what connects us as well. What is your favorite band or type of music?
I'm not as into music as you. I was listening to your podcast and I heard you were a DJ before. But for me, it's Pearl Jam. I partly nostalgic because it was my younger days, but I lived in Seattle for a while. I did an exchange and I lived there. And just to give you a funny anecdote, I came there and I said, Pearl Jam, Nirvana. It's after, it's like 95. Nirvana was not there. And he was like, Pearl Jam, we're going to see them. All my friends were like, yeah, they play every year. We're going to go. And then they didn't play the entire year that I was there. And then afterwards they played. They said, you have to come. So I bought a ticket and I went there. It became a tradition. So whenever Pearl Jam played in Belgium, my friends would come here. And then when they played there, I would go there and we'd buy each other tickets. So
Good excuse. Good excuse, Rob. It was so nice having you on the show. I think you beat Bill Inman on the time we spent together on discussing about data and analytics. Thank you so much for joining me on this really insightful discussion on data and analytics.
Thank you for having me.